Hello out there, fourth grade distance learners of social studies. Today we're working on week number 8, a map scale. First off, let's talk about a map scale and the purpose for it. You may notice here that I have a map of the United States of America. It is not full size. If you were to travel from, let's just say Bismarck, North Dakota, to Pierre, South Dakota, on this map, it looks like I could just go right there, and I am there. In all actuality, it is a great distance. You would have to travel in your car for many hours, not many, but a couple hours to go from Bismarck to Pierre. So what they've done is they've shrunk down the entire United States into a small map. Now, the United States is still super big. So we need something to help us understand just how far it is from Bismarck to Pierre or any other locations on a map that we have. And to do that, we use this box right here. And so this is the scale. Now I want you to look carefully at our scale. You notice there's a 0 and then 300 miles. And then we have 0 lined up with 0, makes sense. And then 300 kilometers. Please notice that 300 miles is different than 300 kilometers. 1 kilometer is shorter than 1 mile. So we will only be measuring in miles today, but it's very important to look at your labels. Continuing on with our labels theme, 1 inch, ... 300 miles. Basically what that's saying is 1 inch equals 300 miles. So every time you travel 1 inch on your map, you are traveling 300 miles in your car or your airplane or whatever mode of transportation you are using to get from point A to point B. So 1 inch equals 300 miles. That being said, it goes even further to say half an inch. So that would be halfway between here, is 150 and 150. 1/2 inch is 150 miles. It breaks it down even farther into quarters. And what they're saying here is this here is 75 miles, 75 miles. So the two of those together equal the 150 and 75 miles, 75 miles, and the 4 of those equal 300 miles. It is used for estimation. You'll notice that on our questions today, you will be asked to estimate, so you will not need to be exact with the exact number of miles, but you will use this map scale to estimate those distances. I want to talk a little bit more about 1 inch to 300 miles. That is a ratio. So what that is saying is every time you go 1 inch, you go 300 miles. If you were to go 2 inches, all right, that would be 600. If you would go 3 inches, that would be 900. So that you are following that ratio of every time you go, you're going up 300 miles. And maybe I should back up here and put a 1 is 300. So you're following that same proportion, that same ratio. Every time you go from 1 to the next number, you're going to add 300 onto it. So 300 plus 300 gives us our 600. Now we're at 600 miles. Add another 300 miles. We're at 900 miles. Getting back to our ratio that we started with over here, we have 1 inch to 300 miles. Now, notice it is labeled very well on our map. I am not going to label it very well just because I have chubby fingers when I write on my computer. So 1 to 300. That is one way you could write a ratio. You can write a ratio a second way. The second way you'd write a ratio is as a fraction, 1 to 300. Now, on your keyboard, you struggle with fractions because you can't put one number on top of the other number like we do in math fractions. So we will use the /, and maybe it's this way on yours. Yep, / to write a ratio. Right down in the bottom right-hand corner next to the shift key is our slash. And that slash is the how we would write our fractions on our paper as we fill it in. So it'd be 1/300. And you would use that slash key. That's the second way, making your ratio a fraction. The third way to write your ratio is to, and I'll go back to blue, is to write it using the words 1, 2, 300. So now I'm using the actual words. When you read each of these, it'd be 1 to 300, 1 inch to 300, 1 inch to 300 miles. Now, friends, in the math world, you will do these a lot in 5th grade, so get good at ratios because you're going to do them a ton. We'll probably most likely use this in our social studies. You will use this in your math world, and you will use this when you speak it. So there actually is a purpose for all three, and so know that this is the ratio that we will use in social studies. This is the ratio you will use in mathematics, or I should say the way to write the ratio in mathematics, and this would be how you would speak it. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and erase all of this. Alrighty, so let's just learn how to measure our ratios, measure our distances using our scale and our ratios. So I'm very lucky. I got a chubby thumb. Look at that thing. I'm not really proud of it. People are like, oh, that guy, he's got chubby thumbs. But the nice thing about my chubby thumb is it's exactly an inch. So when I put it up to the map scale bar there, I put it right there, 1 to 1, exactly 1 inch. I'm a lucky man. It's one of my gifts, one of my talents, the 1 inch thumb. Now, if I want to measure how far it is from, let's say Salt Lake City here to Denver, all right, Salt Lake City to Denver, I can put my thumb on there and one thumb and a little more than one thumb. So it is probably about 300 plus a half, so 300 plus 150, probably about 450 miles. That's a fair estimate of going from Salt Lake City to Denver. Now, what if though, I wanted, and I should back up, my thumb is the tool I use to measure and create an estimate. What if I wanted to be a little more exact? Could I break out a ruler and actually measure it? Yes, you totally could break out the ruler. You could measure exactly how far it is from Salt Lake City to Denver, and if it is 1.5 inches like my thumb estimates, you'd be like, oh, it's 1.5 inches. That would mean 1 inch is 300, half an inch is 150, 450 miles. I don't know that that's exactly true because I don't have a ruler on me. I wish I had a ruler. So I don't have a ruler, so I use my thumb. That's one tool. Ruler was another tool. Oh, I got scratch paper everywhere here. Could I use scratch paper? Yes, I could. Here's what I do. And actually, if you watch the rap video or the song video, it's amazing. They do it in there, and that's where I learned it from there. Put a little mark on the edge. See a little mark there? That's just a little tick mark. That's our 0. So right there, that's 0 miles. So I've lined that up. That is a 0. Now, if I put my 0 on the 0 right there on your scale, and then I make a little line at the 300. Okay, yep. Try that again. My pen didn't quite go. Yep. Okay. Make that a little bit nicer. Label that tick mark 300. I now know from here to here is 300. Then take your 300, put it at the 0 mark, line it up, make a little tick mark at the next spot there. Hey, that would not be a 300 again. That would be 300 plus 300, which we said 300 plus 300, 2 tick marks is 600. So using that ratio, I'm able to now measure 300, 600. Now I put my paper up to my Salt Lake to Denver. Oh my goodness, my thumb was way skinnier than I thought it was. It only measures at 300. So when I check it on there, it is a much more estimate of 300. Maybe my thumb isn't the most accurate estimator. Maybe this is more accurate. Oh, that's a good thing. Now, is it a fair estimate? Yes, I would take that as an estimate, but this is a better estimate. And I could fill this whole paper up. So if I wanted to go all the way from Sacramento all the way to Albany, I could line that up on there and I could estimate it using my paper if I don't have a ruler. If I have a ruler, could I lay my ruler down and measure it? Absolutely. Could I measure it with other tools? Yeah. Maybe you have crayons at home and they're broken at about 1 inch. Could you use that as an estimator? Absolutely. Could you find your shoe? How many of you have measured things with your shoes? Absolutely. Now this map probably wouldn't be appropriate because it's too small for your shoes unless you have tiny feet. I don't know. I'm not here looking at the size of your feet. I can only see your face because they're in Zoom. But there are other tools you could totally use to estimate the map scale. Friends, today we're talking about ratios, we're talking about map scales, and we're talking about measurements because maps are not real life size. If they were, we wouldn't be able to see anything because we'd be stuck right here. You have to take the big Earth, you have to shrink it down to a map, and then you have to understand that it is a ratio. It is a smaller version of the real life map. I hope that makes sense today as we are talking about ratios and map scales. I want to just make sure that I hit on all of the items that I need to hit on for today, and it does look like I did. Friends, you are learning social studies, you are learning map skills, and it is awesome. Keep being awesome.